Aisha, and to start off, we will begin with each participant giving a brief introduction about themselves, as well as telling us, if elected, what are the 2 to 3 actions that you intend to fight for on behalf of the political group that you're a part of.
We will start with in alphabetical order. So, Ariana, you can start and tell us who you are and the 3 actions that you would like to push for.
Great. Oh. Hi everyone, my name is Ariane Giraneza Vecchiaro. I am first substitute for Groen at the European elections. In my day-to-day, I work as a climate policy manager for a climate NGO, specifically on European policy, but with a regional concentration on Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. And so 3 things that we would want to fight for once we're in office. Well, we, the Greens, we really believe in the Green Deal, but we also believe that it has to be an equitable deal that deals with the injustices that already exist. We know and understand how climate change and how the climate crisis can exacerbate actually already existing inequalities, because it's vulnerable people who do not have a lot of money, who live in the worst places with the worst air quality, do not have enough money to renovate their house. So, for us, if I can say 3 things, we really want that social part of the Green Deal to come through. So not just a Green Deal, but a green and social deal. We want to do that 3 ways. First of all, we feel that there should be a doubling of the European Social Climate Fund. Now it's about at 86 billion euros. We would want that to go over 170 billion euros. This would mean 3.5 billion euros for Belgium to invest in renovations, in our public transport, and making it better and actually making it an attractive choice for people.
Thank you, Ariane. Your time is up.
Sorry, I can go
But
on.
maybe as you go and as the debate go, you may be able to tell about the other 2, right? So we are very strict on time, you guys. So I'm counting on you. And now it's Ralph.
Oh, that's wrong.
Alphabetical order.
Good evening. My name is Ralph van den Houten. I am standing up for elections on the 5th place of the list for the Vlaams Belang. I have been a Flemish nationalist all my life. I have been in politics already in the early 90s. What are we going to fight for in the European Parliament if I get elected? And even if I'm not elected, then my group will do this. That is, first of all, abolish the Green Deal. The Green Deal is harmful for our industries, for our agriculture, and will impoverish and disindustrialize the European Union. The second thing is that we want to get rid of the Migration Pact. The Migration Pact is a scandal. It's going to encourage, to facilitate replacement migration to the EU, and absolutely it has to be abolished. The third major point that we want to fight for is to maintain the unanimity vote in the European Council. There is a strong project to go for a qualified majority. This would be very harmful to the small countries, to the small member states. We want to maintain the unanimity vote in the European Council so that the smaller member states will be able to protect themselves from...
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
And now let's hear from Hendrik.
Hello to you all. Congratulations, first of all, to be here and not in the garden outside during the winter. So I'm Hendrik Teunissen. I'm the 3rd candidate on the substitute list for NVA, which is the biggest political party in Flanders and in Belgium. It's a centre-right party and a pro-European party. I am the fraction secretary, delegation secretary in the European Parliament for my party. I'm not going to name 3, but 2 big issues. The main baseline for our campaign is welfare. We believe that you can only be credible outside in the world and that man can listen to the EU if the EU is strong, which means we need to complement, not get away with the Green, but complement the Green Deal with a competitiveness pact. A pact for welfare by strengthening our internal market, investing in innovation, with a budget in order. Second part is to protect. We need to better protect ourselves from unfair practices, unfair trading, and also protect young people. One just very short point on young people. You all know that there is at least one person that is too addicted on screens. Well, the EU can help there, and we believe there should be massive action to avoid addictive design by big social companies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now let's hear from Shensuvi.
Hello everyone, my name is Chancelie Kitokanjo. I am from CDMV. I'm the 12th on the list. Besides that, I'm a municipal councillor in the Berlin with CDMV as well. What we're gonna fight for in the European Union is a safe European Union. So the safety within the EU borders as well as outside of the EU borders. Besides that, we want to fight for the social rights that has to be organized and well implemented in the EU, on EU level for other, so it can be the same for all member states. And besides that, we want an economical, strong and independent EU, not dependent of third countries.
Wow, pretty good. Now, Stephanie.
First of all, hi. Turn it on. Hello?
Yes.
Yes. So first of all, hi everyone. I'm Stephanie Ngongo. I'm happy to be here at my old school. So I'm a candidate on the list of the party Vooruit, this socialist party. I'm candidate on the European list, 6th candidate. In my day-to-day life, I work for a political cabinet for a deputy mayor in Brussels. So to answer the question of the 3 main topics that Vooruit or the Socialists and Democrats would fight for in the European Union is first of all the Green Deal, and I want to underline that for us it's the Green Social Deal because it should be accompanied with social measures so that everyone can follow along and nobody is left behind. And a part of it is also affordable housing, and I think it's a very important point mainly for, I think, all of you guys and even us. Affordable housing should be a basis. And also, we are a pro-European party, and we would also always stand for European values of equality for all.
Thank you so much. And now let's wrap it up with Vincent.
Hi everybody, I'm Vincent. I'm a spokesperson for Flemish Minister Remy Rutte in the Flemish government, and also a PhD student actually in biotechnology. But enough about me, our political party of course. To me the major point is that today we are standing on a crossroad in history. The generation before us saw the fall of the Berlin Wall, was injected with hope after that because it was the end of history. History was changing forever. Today we again have a conflict on European soil. We have Russia invading Ukraine. We have then next to us the war in Gaza, where Israel is actually invading Gaza. And this is bringing huge tension on our European continent and our European Union. The question that is before us, at least for me, that is the most important, is the question of our safety. Our safety and our role in the geopolitical sphere. How will we try to stop conflicts going on around us, and how will we ensure our safety and peace on the European continent? And I believe, and my party believes, that there are several things that need to be done for that. First of all, we should go for a European Defence Force. We should bring our forces together, not to attack, but to defend. Second, we should get rid of the unanimity vote. It's totally crazy that countries like Hungary or Poland are able to stop.
Oh, Vincent! Oh my God.
I have to stop?
Yeah, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
No worries.
But you will have many opportunities throughout the whole thing to tell us all about what your political party stands for and what you think you can do better for the European citizens. Okay?
Before we go into our topics, let us remind everyone of the European values that this union is built on. So the European Union was founded on values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities, as it was laid down in Article 2 of the Treaty on European Union. To ensure that these values are respected, Article 7 provides the EU mechanism to determine the existence and possibly sanction serious and persistent breaches of the EU values by the member states. It was recently activated for the first time in response to the violations by Poland and Hungary. The EU is bound by its Charter of Fundamental Rights and is committed to complying with the European Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. Following the emergence of threats to EU values in some member states, the EU institutions are strengthening their toolbox in order to counter the democratic backsliding and protect democracy, the rule of law, fundamental rights, equality, and minorities all across our union.
Thank you. So tonight we will talk about those values actually. Every topic that we have picked for you, it's about those values. So really remember each and every one of those elements that are in this Article 2, because you will, as we talk and how we go on to different topic and different question, we will kind of like question our values, okay? So now we're going to start with the topic on the importance of the EU with the focus on youth. You are here, we are here. Why is it the EU is important? How does it impact your life? Why you? Why is everyone wants you to go vote? That's because you have a very, very powerful element to you. You have a very, very important role in the construction and the development of the EU. And so, I hand it off.
To our first question on this topic. So in recent years, the issue of unpaid internships has come under scrutiny across our union, and it also caused numerous protests across the member states. These internships are often essential for young people's career development, and they've been criticized for exploiting the very individuals that they are meant to help. With the staggering height of youth unemployment at 13% across EU, the obstacles faced by young adults entering the workforce are overwhelming. Recognizing the need to protect young workers and retain talent in Europe, the EU has proposed new legislation aimed at ending unpaid internships. However, this move has been criticized for lacking clarity and the insufficient force. We're raising questions about its effectiveness and feasibility of its enforcement across member states. And we would like to invite everyone to share their thoughts on this new directive, as well as tell us what level of respect is your party willing to show for the minds of tomorrow.
We will start this time with Vincent.
How much time do I have?
You have 1 minute. You can do it.
Sure. So maybe I'll go on the internships then. To me personally, and I'll take an example that's close to home. My girlfriend did an unpaid internship at Amnesty International because she wanted to do something with human law and with she wanted to change the world somehow. And then she worked 6 months for the organization. She threw her life at it, and at the end she couldn't stay because then there was no money. And of course I understand they don't have that much money, so it's a difficult point. But in the end, it's also very strange that if we allow our youth to actually start in a professional life, but we're unwilling to pay them anything. So where I'm concerned, an internship should be paid. But then the question, of course, is where does the money come from? And I think there, to me, the importance, and I hope I still have some time, the importance is in a strong economy. And I was hearing, I'll make slight sidestep, that we should abolish the Green Deal and only go for an industrial deal. I think that's totally crazy. If you want a strong economy, you should have a Green Deal and an industrial deal. And that's also going to change the future of us if we have a strong economy and a good climate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now maybe let's hear from Ralph.
We certainly agree that every work should be paid, and young people stepping into professional life have still a lot to learn. So basically there should be a balance between the knowledge, the know-how that the worker, the employer will transmit to the young trainee or internship, and the remuneration that person will get. There should be a balance. But the main thing for us is that this is not a competence of the EU. Labor law should always be a national competence, because labor markets are very specific, and the Belgian labor market, even the Belgian labor market is very specific in a way that you have the Walloon labor market, which is very different from the Flemish one. The Romanian one will be different from the Italian one, or from the Scandinavian one. So there's no one size fits all, and we think it should be a national competence. It should remain a national competence.
Thank you so much. And now, Stephanie, you have the floor.
Yes. So, of course, youth are very important also for the socialists. And the main topic that we want to fight for youth is affordable education, and that affordability also comes through in the internships, because unpaid internships are really a struggle for people who actually need to work for their money during their studies. So if you are working all the time but unpaid, that is kind of taking away chances of some students. So we are totally for paid internships, and globally, even for just affordable education systems all through Europe, because right now it's not guaranteed in every country. And that is something that can be tackled on the European level. So I think the European level is very important for education, as well as just school lessons as internships.
Thank you so much. And now, Henrik.
Thank you. Well, of course, work should be paid in principle, but we should not forget that internships exist already from the Middle Ages. And it's also a relationship between one who is master in his job and who's willing to give and to educate and to train youngsters. So it's also an investment, and that's why we believe it's not a black and white issue, because it can be that some internships will never be given again, because they have to be paid, and some companies say, well, we don't have the money for this, which would be really bad. It would be bad for the intern, and it would be bad for the company. Of course, what we don't want is to have people that are succeeding from the one internship to the other one, which are all unpaid. So there should be a limit, but that's best to be guaranteed at the member state level, because indeed, the labor markets are different. And you cannot have one top-down system from the EU. You need to differentiate and have clear principles that you should be insured. You should have mobility pay, but it will depend from every member state how to organize it, and that's why I have this clear warning. Watch out that you don't make it too rigid, too central, because some young people might not have the chance to have good internship.
So obviously we are for the banning of unpaid internships. I think saying that when people work that they should be paid is not something super controversial, and the same goes for young people. The reason why I say this is I did an unpaid internship in Washington, D.C. at the Belgian embassy. I was writing notes, sending them back to Brussels, not just getting coffee. It was actual work. And in order for me to get there, my aunt bought the ticket, my mom bought I got so much financial assistance from all of my family, and I think this is also important because the internships are unpaid in all these prestigious places. It makes it impossible for someone who comes from a vulnerable background, who does not have the money or a family group behind them in order to pay for this. So obviously people who work should be paid.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. And lastly, Chancellor.
So for us, we think that we have to regulate the internships. Our young people doing internships all across the EU means that we have to regulate this on EU level, and not, as has been said, that it's national thing. But we have to make sure that it's regulated properly. That means that it cannot mean that you can do an internship at this company or this sector in one country of the EU that is paid and in another country that is not paid. So it has to be regulated in the European Union so that we can say that this sector, it will be paid everywhere in the EU, and this sector, it will be unpaid everywhere. And so the students that want to do an internship already know on forehand, like this is where I get paid, this is where I get unpaid. But of course, we prefer internships to be paid for the students so that they can get used to what it means of working and having a salary for it.
Thank you. Just so I give you information, at the European level, within the institution, unpaid internship is banned since about 2016, because the European Ombudsman, based on the fact that European Youth Organization and young people demanded to stop unpaid internship. So this is the situation within the European institutions. So thank you everyone for your answer. So as we continue to talk about inclusion, diversity, accessibility, I would like to take, for example, the fight against racism and discrimination. Following the murder of George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement in the EU, together with EU citizens, students, and civil society organizations, demanded changes, which led to the EU Anti-Racism Action Plan, acknowledging structural and institutional racism within the EU, and calling for the mainstreaming of racial equality in all EU policy. From reading all your political manifestos, values are something that is important to you all, but does not manifest in the same manner. So my question to you is being anti-racist part of your values? And if yes, how in the next 5 years do you intend to ensure the full implementation of the EU Anti-Racism Action Plan, as well as its reconduction post-2025? What is your view, and what is your view on segregated data? So, who would like to start?
No, not to start, but what was the last term?
What is it?
Oh, the last question is, what is your view on segregated data?
What is that?
Yeah.
All right, so segregated data basically is the fact that we can get data on ethnic minorities. Okay? Who would like to start off? Jean-Salvi, you can go ahead.
So first of all, I want to emphasize that after 10 long years of negotiating, we finally had the EU Migration Pact that has been voted in the European Parliament, and thanks to our Secretary of Asylum and Migration, Nicole, this has happened this year. So we are definitely not anti-racist, and we want to make sure that people who need protection can find protection in the EU, but this has to be regulated. It has to be done in an orderly way, and of course, every party or every member state has to contribute. We don't want it to be only one country. For example, Belgium in 2022 received almost 36,000 asylum seekers, but Portugal has the same amount or more or less of a population as Belgium, received 2,000. So that is not okay. That's why we think that every party or every member state has to do their part and has to be this safe haven for people who deserve it. There are conditions to enter the EU, and we want to enforce those conditions. But we are not building a wall around Europe. We are building maybe a wall with a door inside of it, so that people who need to be secure or are looking for security can find it in the EU, and then all together we can help those people.
Thank you. I'll just like to again ask my question because maybe it wasn't correct. So my question is Is being anti-racist part of your values? And if yes, how is the next 5 years do you intend to ensure the full implementation of the EU Anti-Racism Action Plan, as well as its reconduction post-2025? That's number one. Number two is, what is your view on segregated data? Thank you.
And as for migration, you'll be able to share more of your thoughts
Yes.
later during our debate. And now, Ariane.
Yes, so we are very happy with the anti-racism plan on EU level. A couple of months ago, I think the European Centre for Equality came with a study, one of the first studies, about the experiences of people of color, Black people in Europe. And everyone was shocked because what came out of this study, 1 in 4 Black people all over Europe experience racism on a daily basis. Why were people shocked? Because we do not have numbers. So not only do we fully support the implementation of the Anti-Racism Pact and will continue fighting for it on European level because those are our values, we also support segregated data. I know it's icky when you have to fill in your race or ethnic makeup on a form, but it does give us information. In the States, they actually have accurate information if in the last 5 years not a Black person has ever got a job at State Department, for example. They know these things. We in Europe don't know these things because we don't have data, and do not use the excuse that, oh, we're trying not to discriminate against people who are already getting discriminated against. Best that we know what is happening, at what level, and so that we can also make this an input for further development of the anti-racism plan as we go on. So that is how Green sees it.
Thank you so much. And now, Ralph.
Yes, there we see another way for the EU to mingle in citizens' lives and to take competences away from the nation states, from the member states. We don't have to be anti-racist, we just are non-racist. And we have in Belgium robust anti-discriminatory laws. We even have a prosecuting office specifically for this problem. And I think just looking at the panel here, I can say that racism is not a major issue in the EU.
Oh my God!
Are you done with your
Thank you.
Now, Stephanie.
Yes. Where to start? We, the Socialist Party, Vooruit, or the S&D group, absolutely believe that there are still a lot of steps to take in the whole equality debate, racism, anti-racism. We are adhering to the European values that we just saw in the beginning of the presentations, equality, human dignity, etc. And just to bounce back on what our colleague here said, in Europe right now we are experiencing a wave of extreme right, of far right ideology, and we see that when those parties come to power, the rights of minority groups, whether it's gender minorities or racial minorities, those rights are diminishing, and it's a real threat for Europe. So the socialists are really glad that there is an anti-racism agreement on European level, and we would really like to follow along with it because it's really important for to ensure the equality and the human dignity and all the other values.
Thank you. Vincent?
I don't assume we can respond to. No.
Vincent, and then you can respond. That's okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah?
Okay, I actually would like to paraphrase a wise man, so to speak, who once said, and again I'll paraphrase, that's not literally, but I think it was something like he had a dream and he wanted that actually a person would be judged on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. And I think to me that's one of the most fundamental values of our European Union. I think I believe that it is impossible to live in a union where you would allow racism. Let me be clear, there is no room for racism at all. And of course, I think our society has taken major steps. But, and I'll give a very clear example to answer in a second question. If you, for instance, look at the labor market, where we are also our department in Flanders, we still see that there's discrimination. That if you have a funny name or a strange name, or you look a little bit different than somebody else, it's difficult to find a job. And then I fully agree with what was said before, that we should have data on that. We should at least know if there is discrimination. Does this mean that we have to go for positive discrimination? That if there are two people with the same skill set, that we should take somebody because they have a different color of skin? In my personal opinion, no. I believe that you should always try to find the best person for it. And the point is there is no room for racism at all. We should be clear on that. And we should have data, but we should not positively discriminate. That's also the point.
Thank you so much. And we are going to allow small responses, but before we do so, we would like to let Henrik speak first.
Well, NVA is an inclusive party. Doesn't matter where you come from. You can integrate in the Flemish society with politicians from all backgrounds, all ages, and so on. But it's not only about promoting EU fundamental values, and that's the point I want to make. You know, we have a commissioner, Mr. Shinas, and unfortunately, some parties in the European Parliament didn't agree with his job title. His first job title was to promote EU fundamental rights and also to protect EU fundamental rights. And he had to change his job title, which I cannot understand, because if you are part of the EU, if you are part of the EU community, you are these basic fundamental rights and fundamental values we all share, and these are to be respected. So if you're part of the community, you're part of integration, which clearly says men, women are equal, no to racism, no to discrimination. And this is really something we have to be very firm on. It's promoting our fundamental values and protecting our fundamental values for the future generations to coexist.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to allow two free responses. Are there any candidates wishing to respond to the statements of others?
Okay, so yeah, you go ahead.
I would very much like to know which countries with extreme right regimes in Europe are diminishing rights for minorities. I think it's a fantasy. Also, in Belgium, we have a lot of positive discrimination. You see it everywhere. It's not just in Belgium, it's everywhere in Europe. So I think the debate is a false debate.
Thank you.
I would like to reply on what you said about there is no racism in Europe. That is not true. I experience racism almost every day. For example, when I was looking for a house that I wanted to buy because I had a job and I had the capacity to do it, when I called and I spoke in Dutch, they didn't know what color my skin was, so they said, "Oh yes, of course you can come and visit the house." And when I arrived and they saw me and they were like, "Yeah, but we're waiting for somebody else who speaks good Dutch," and I was like, "Yeah, that's me." "Oh, okay. Well, I think we have to reschedule." And then you say there's no racism, and that's only in Belgium. We can give so many examples of racism in Belgium, in Europe, on the labor market, in the schools, even on the street. So saying that racism doesn't exist is the problem.
Thank you. And as you asked for an example of EU country which diminish citizens' rights, I would take an example of Italy, where currently there has been a backsliding of LGBTQI plus community rights as well as women's rights.
It's not a minority, it's not an ethnic minority. It's nothing to do with racism. Sorry, but that's a completely false debate.
This was about far right.
I just gave an example. It's okay. All right. Next one.
So now
It's your turn to tell us.
do you think that being anti-racist is a European value? If not, should it be? If you agree, I don't think we have the QR yet. Actually, the QR is not working, so just if you agree. Is it? Sorry. It is.
As you share with you your opinions, one second. Are you not able to do the? Okay, so let's do old school because technology is failing us. All right. So by the show of hands, who thinks being anti-racist is a European value? Who doesn't believe it?
How do you define being anti-racist? Because I don't know a single person in the whole university in this room who considers himself racist. So what is the
And
definition?
that's the problem.
What is the definition of anti-racist? How do you define this? Because we cannot say yes or no if the definition is not clear.
Okay, especially as politicians, being anti-racist would show up as active involvement into fighting racism on the institutional level and supporting the anti-racist pact that the EU has. And that was our initial question. So, yeah, I hope that answers yours.
Thank you.
Yeah, now let's move on to the next question. The last one from the focus on youth. And it's going to be about equal access to education. So in regard to youth and education, the EU competences either support or supplement actions of member states. In that case, what do you believe is the manner in which the EU should support member states to ensure equal access to education for everyone? How do you see the future of EU involvement? Or do you maybe see a possible evolvement of the competences when it comes down to youth and education?
Hendrik, would you like to start?
Yes, sorry. Well, it is, as you said, it is a member state competence education, but it doesn't mean we can learn from each other. And there, every year, member states, they grow national reform programs, and there are benchmarks, and there are good practices that can be shared. We all know that tuition fees in the UK, unfortunately, it's not a member of the EU anymore. So just 30, 40,000 and so on. Whereas in Flanders, we have one of the lowest fares. So there are good practices and how we finance it and so on, and this could be shared. But basically, it's up to every member state in every region to organize its own educational system. It's something of preferences of democracy. If you don't want this system, you vote for another system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, Stephanie, would you like to answer?
Education indeed is a national competence, but I think the European Union can always bring about a good frame. For example, the Erasmus program is something that is very, very handy and is of good experience for a lot of youth. Maybe some in this room have used the Erasmus program. It makes sure that students can come in contact with other cultures, other countries, and things like that are stemming from the EU. It has to do with education, and that is a good thing. Also, I think the EU can build frames to make sure that all the EU nations could provide affordable education, because right now it's not guaranteed in all the countries. Exactly like has been said, in Belgium, our education system for higher education is very affordable, but that's not the same in every country. And I think it would be a benefit for everybody in Europe that every country would learn a little bit from Belgium and have affordable, accessible education.
Thank you so much. Vincent?
Thanks. So actually, I kind of agree with what was said before me. I think there were some quite good words on that. Maybe I'll also go on to the Erasmus program, because recently, I don't know whether you noticed, in the KU Leuven, which is one of the universities in Flanders, they made the decision that you can only go with a scholarship on Erasmus for 1 semester. And to me, actually, this was a shame. I was lucky to go for a whole year to Switzerland, and it's actually there in Switzerland that I was able to learn about people from Lithuania, from Spain, from Serbia, from you name it. And it's by being there for a longer period that you're able to hear from them, to listen to them, to hear their stories, to hear their fears, and to know actually what drives them and what goes to their norms and values. That is to me the essence of the European Union, of course, the connection with other people and being able to talk about your fears. In the case of somebody of Lithuania, it would be the Russian invasion, and so on. So, but when it comes to education, I don't believe that it's up to Europe to make like this legislation that actually goes beyond the regional capacity. It's to the regions to make the policies on it. And I also don't agree that Europe should say, in this country, education should cost this much. Why? Because I still believe that if you live in a country where the taxes are low, maybe it's not that big an issue if education would be 100 euros more expensive. So it all depends, of course, on the country you live in. To me personally, I would prefer to live in a country with low taxes, but also low costs for education, of course.
Sorry, but we're gonna have to move on. Chancel-V?
Of course, we think that the education or how it is organized is up to the regions or up to every member state. But we think that access to education is something that could be regulated at the European level, because it's part of the EU pillar of social rights. It's a right that is should be for everyone, and there should be a minimum in the EU for every person in the member state. So we think that the accessibility to education should be at least have some minimal directives at the EU level, and then every member state can implement it according to its taxes and etc. in their country.
Thank you so much. Now, Ariane?
Yes, so obviously education is a regional competence, and we've heard that again and again. But since we are a unified single market, and economically we decided to, bring our faiths together, it would be great for there to be a floor, a European floor of like, this is the basis of like education that we want for our European citizens. How it goes up, member states can do it by themselves, but that there's just minimum requirements. Like, we try to make education not too expensive so that it's accessible for everyone. And then the member states can fill it in themselves. But we are for a bit more unified European level and quality of education. I would also want to talk about Erasmus. I think it's a great project. We all love Erasmus, but the funds that they're giving are still too low, which makes it still very unequal, and that not everyone can access this. And it's such a great project. As everyone has said before, it creates understanding of other cultures and an understanding of a European identity. So it should be accessible to more people.
Thank you so much. And now, Rolf?
Yes, as has been said before, education is a national competence and should remain there. What hasn't been said here is that education is first of all about transmitting knowledge and competences. And if I look at it, I don't know about the other member states, but I see what's happening in Flanders, where the education has been totally mismanaged by the socialists, and my colleague here's party is trying to improve, to repair what can be repaired. But first of all, the primary schooling and secondary schooling are the basis of all other education.
Sir,
and
could you
we
turn
are
the
lacking.
microphone on?
It's on.
Sorry.
It's on.
Ah, it's on. Okay.
So children should first of all learn to read, to write, learn sciences, and then maybe they can learn other things too. But it's not not trying to create a platform on EU level where the EU should mingle in how education is to be organized or what should be taught. So it's very specifically a national competence level and should remain there, with a focus on knowledge transmission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now this is actually going to be the last question in this section, which is if you could tell us over the past 5 years, what were the achievements at the EU level of your political party? Briefly let us know.
All of them.
Well, Henrik, you can start
Yes.
with all of them.
I think we pushed the bar in this European Parliament to have attention, as I said, for welfare, because you cannot be a credible international partner if you are just an economic graveyard. So it means that we pushed for new trade agreements, not enough, because the EU needs to be need to have trade partners all over the world. You know, in Europe, 1 out of 7 jobs are dominant on trades. So we want to push for more, especially with the Mercosur countries, Southeast countries, the African countries, and so on. Trade is helping and lifting everybody everywhere else. Second, single market. It needs to be much more in the attention. And finally, now we have a report how to complete it. It will bring 12% growth. So think of the energy where you can link the north and the south to each other. And that way have better energy prices. Third point, have your budget more under control. You know, our party has the chair of the budget committee, Mr. Van Overtveld. He was the first one to say maybe we should also look into expenses and not only see on new taxes and new ways over. So there's a new shift of thinking. And then I think maybe a last point to say is also that we wrote in the Green Deal that is now an understanding that we have to be very careful in the implementation thereof.
Okay.
So that's a point to respect unity in diversity.
Thank you so much. We went a bit over time, but Ariane, you have the.
So obviously there have been a lot of climate policies coming out of the EU, and we're very proud of the Green Deal. It could be a bit more ambitious, but we have what we have. If there's something I personally am very proud of as Greens that we work very hard for, and our MEP Sarah Mathieu Green specifically worked as a rapporteur on it, is the circular economy package, which is a lot of legislations that does a lot of things. For example, implementing eco-design, which means that products in their design phase should be designed to be recycled instead of just made any which way. But the thing I am personally very proud of as a fashion girly that likes to shop is the ban on the destruction of unsold goods. In Europe, every single time we buy something online, we like it, we don't like it, we send it back. There was a high probability 1/3 of those clothing would just then get burned. And within the circular economy package, there's a ban on the burning and the destruction of unsold goods. And that is something that personally makes me feel a bit better at night.
That's nice, thank you. And Ralph, what about identity and democracy?
Yes, obviously we have been in the past 10 years an opposition party, an opposition group. So we haven't had a big part in the magnificent realizations of this crazy tenure with the Green Deal and the Migration Pact. Our role has mainly been in finding out what's going on, informing our voters, constituency, asking critical questions to the Commission, which I must say receive only partly interesting answers. Mainly the Commission is trying to get around the questions and not answering. We have made introduced a lot of resolutions, own initiatives by our MEPs, but of course, what happens to those? They reach the Commission, and then they are turned down in the by the coordinators and are not even discussed in the commission. So there's a lot to be said about the democratic working of the European Parliament. Mainly, we have been an opposition party, we have been critical, we have asked critical questions, and we have informed our voters of what's happening in the European Union.
Thank you so much. And Stephanie?
I think everybody in here has sometime ordered something with like Deliveroo or used an Uber. And I'm proud that the socialists had a part in making sure that all the platform workers, because I think we can also all agree that those workers work very hard, and now they have also social protection. They should have social protection. So that is something I think is very important, that all workers and all work should be protected, and protected with like social benefits. That's really an important thing. And also the whole plan with the EU minimum wage. Those are two things that I think that are very important for everybody, and that the socialists have been fighting for.
Thank you so much. And Vincent?
I'll actually go for I'll actually go for an accomplishment that we did not accomplish. And I'm again going back to what I was saying at the beginning. The moment, to me, the most important moment in the European, the last 5 years is actually when Alexander De Croo was standing together with Pedro Sanchez from Spain at the gates of Rafah to say that we should stop killing innocent victims. And it made some it sounds strange, but now we're actually also going finally with Alexander De Croo, our Prime Minister, to find unanimity on the fact that there should be trade bans to Israel to what they're doing there. And the fact to me is that this discussion on unanimity is actually going on. The fact that VUB Brussels with this conference on the future of Europe started the discussion in Europe, like what should Europe should look like in 2050, where should we go? And to me, the best accomplishment the Liberals actually made in the European Parliament is to really start up the discussion on unanimity, to say that we should be a geopolitical European Union, not only an economical European Union. So it's an accomplishment that we didn't make, but that to me vibrates the dream of Europe, the dream that I personally really cherish, that we should be a strong union in our norms, values, but also in what we do together.
Thank you so much. And Jean-Sophie?
Yes, as I said before, I think that one thing that we can really mention is the EU Migration Pact. You must know that for 10 years they have been discussing, there have been people trying to get this migration pact or trying to work against this migration pact, but we from our party and with the EPP, we make it work. We worked for a solution, and we think that we got the solution by having this migration pact voted. Also in the European Parliament a few weeks ago. So we are, I think that is a very big accomplishment, because it will make sure that we can manage migration within the EU, and especially in Belgium, where we know that we have a lot of people coming to Belgium, but we don't have the place for everybody, and that other countries or other member states don't take enough persons to help those who are seeking for protection. So I think that one of the biggest accomplishments is migration.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes. We would like now to give you, the audience, one more chance. Would you like, anyone here would like to ask directly a question to one of our candidates?
Specifically, best if it's connected to you. And yeah, Europe. Yes, here.
Yes, in front. Yes, she raised her hands first, that's why.
I can have a good one.
Yes, okay, can I borrow your microphone?
I think it's off, right? It's off. You should put
It's
it on.
on.
Ah, it's on.
I have two big or small question, I don't know.
Remember, you will have more time at the end, eh? Let's,
Well, Yeah, okay. It just comes to me a question for all candidates present here. What do each of your groups, political parties, propose to face the problem of the European Union are facing today? The main one is the fact that European people are not considering themselves European but more nationalized. And I think this is weakening the European Union. Also, you talked about taxes, because every country has different taxes. Could we in the future consider, I don't know, a regulation of taxes in every country in the European Union?
Can you get one more question, or do you want to answer this one first and then? Yeah. One more? Okay. Write it down. Write it down. Write it down.
So hi everyone. My question is for the NBA. So you said it's an old tradition of doing unpaid traineeships or internships. But don't you think that inflation is not an old tradition? We have the highest cost of living in previous years. And my question is mainly if Jan Bon can do it in Flanders, where there is a program if you do an unpaid traineeship in a prestigious organization, then Flanders pays you the cost of living. If we can do it on a local level in Flanders, why not on an EU level for all the member states? If we can do it as such a small province, why not everyone?
Thank you. There will be more, I promise, I promise. All right. Chancel, you can start.
First, you can start.
I will answer to your first question about EU feeling or
Euroscepticism.
yes, that's definitely a danger for the European Union and it's weakening the European Union. And the main problem I think is because we have parties that are coming with very extreme ideas and saying, for example, that racism doesn't exist, that makes that people go further away from each other. They're bringing in populism that actually is against what the EU stands for. So it's definitely something that is coming up and that we have to be very careful about, and that the democratical parties have to be work on to not let extremists get the better hand.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wanting to share their thoughts? Well, Ariane, I saw you first.
We asked that you
Keep it short. So on European identity, I do agree there is a lack of like this feeling of unity or this feeling of Europeanness. But I think it's not just a problem of the people, it's also a problem of politicians and how they communicate about the EU. There's this meme that I saw when I was 19 studying here at the VUB, and I still have it in my phone, and it is of a kid who is being crushed by a boot. And then you zoom out the picture, the boot is the EU, the kid are the member states. But when you zoom out, you see that the kid has actually their hand on the boot and is pretending to be crushed. So I want everyone to realize, and we should be more transparent about it, the EU is not just Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel, it's also Premier Pedro Sanchez, Premier Alexander De Croo, Bundeskanzler Olaf Scholz. They are all there in the Council of the European Union making decisions. We never get to know which decisions they make, so they can then all go back to their country, and all politicians can do that and be, oh no, Europe is forcing us. And it creates this narrative, this idea that it's this monolithic, creepy thing in Brussels that is forcing everyone to do things. No, you're part of this, and that should be clear.
Thank you. Stephanie, did you want to?
maybe you also want to answer like the other questions, you know, like.
The other question was for Andrea.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, so
I'm sorry. All right.
I'll make it short.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I wanted to answer on your question question is that indeed there's a rise in nationalism and populism, and like it's okay if everybody is proud. Okay, I'm proud to be Belgian, I'm proud to be Spanish, etc. That's fine. But it becomes a problem when people have an aversion of the European Union, and they're like, okay, the European Union forces us to do X, Y, Z, like Ariane said. I think it's indeed important that politicians communicate transparently, and also I think that lots of people that complain about, oh yeah, Europe makes us do this and that, they don't realize that there are a lot of problems that are international, that don't stop at the borders, that are not handled on European level. And I think the question should even be like turned around, like what policies or what issues are now regulated at national level that might even better be regulated like across the European Union, because right now there are problems like in taxation, fiscality, like I think you mentioned, that make it possible for like big enterprises to evade taxes and stuff. That's possible because it's not regulated on EU level. And I think that's work.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, 1 minute, sorry.
Thank you so much. Yes. Go and Drake.
Thank you. I'll try to be 1 minute. That's a task. On your first question, we have a saying in Flanders, and it's on another political party, but it doesn't matter. It says, "We zijn Vlaming om Europeer te worden," which means we are Flemish people to be European. It's very important today to understand that your identity is rooted in your community, and in that way, if you're really rooted, you can really become truly European because you stand firm and you have your own traditions and your own respect. And that's why I don't see and that's what we as politicians need to convey. It is in addition to your nationality, you have this European identity. It is both. And it's for us to explain, and also that's why we need to have national parliaments more associated in EU, debate, question the ministers. What did you say in the council? Come and explain your policy of your country. Second, on taxes, I can be very, very clear. Of course, avoidance of taxes we do at the EU level, but certainly even better at the OECD level. So that's now what we are doing. Close the loopholes. And the third question was from gentleman over there. Thank you for raising this good practice from Flanders. But of course, the essence is we don't believe it's up for the EU to organize. We're happy to share this and happy to have this good practice shared. But if it's for the EU, you easily come into an intrusive policy making in labor markets. And there, every labor market is different. From the Middle Ages already, and it's a dynamic, and you need to have this dynamic. Of course, there are common principles, but
Well, thank you.
Vincent?
Sure. On the first question, we're very short. To my opinion, I actually think it's a shame that the European elections are coupled on the same moment as the Flemish, the regional, or in Brussels, and the national elections. I think they should be separate. I think it also would help for the debate on Europe, at least here, that we could really debate on it. I'm happy to be here now to talk about Europe, but we don't do this often enough. We talk mainly on the other levels, but actually Europe is, to me personally, the main level, actually, where the real things are decided. So on the first one. On the second, and actually it's already been said, so a major issue we have today in Europe is, of course, that countries are competing with each other to have the lowest taxes for multinationals to actually be there in their country. And I think this is an issue. And I think indeed, as has been said, the OECD has made a good policy, the idea to make a minimal tax, I think 50% for the noodschapbelasting, I don't know how to say the English. But I think this idea is very strong, but because if we allow companies to not pay their taxes, I mean, then you also ruin your economy. You should have taxes on a certain level, and it's not okay in our Western democracies if we allow companies to just skip taxes in another country, because then we ruin our economy. So to me, there should be a minimal level of taxes. But your question is on the taxes that I work for, and that was the point I was trying to make. I believe that they should be lower. If I work, I don't believe I should give money to the government, right? And there I think it's of course a national level, and that was the point I was trying to make in education.
Thank you. Right?
Yes, I'll start first about the tax system. The fiscal system is a representation of policy choices made by member states at local level. Of course, you can make agreements at a supranational level, at an EU level, that each country will impose a certain taxation level on multinational companies or companies making windfall profits. That is certainly possible, but the initiative should always come from the member states. Fiscal systems are representations of policy choices, not the other way around. And then the other question regarding why people don't identify more with the European Union. Well, I identify as a Flemish. I'm born Flemish. My culture is the European culture, European civilization, and the EU at this moment is something I absolutely cannot identify with because it's becoming a left-wing mongrel.
Thank you. So,
Yes.
but this is something we're going to be agreeing upon. As we move on to the next section, I wanted to say, regardless of which policy area, the EU is directly or indirectly present and impact our lives and decisions made at national level by our national representative. While the competence of the EU is well defined and determined via its treaty, the past 5 years have seen the EU taking a more leadership role, strengthening or enhancing its policy area competences. This expansion has largely benefited and strengthened the role of the European Parliament as a co-legislator. Basically, I'm just saying, the MEPs, they have a say. They can't say, oh, it's not us, it's the Commission, because at the end of the day, they also are part of the decision making. Because the so-called ordinary legislative procedure applied to around 85 policy area, meaning that unless stated otherwise, within the treaty, ordinary legislative procedure apply. And this is the most common procedure which apply to pass all the EU legislation at the European level. And so, I'm lost. And because of that, how would you protect the rule of law and ensure that the rights observed and acquired under the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights are respected and guaranteed in all EU member states? Should a member state that does not respect the rule of law still be considered a democratic country and thus remain member of the European Union? Because members of the European Union are supposed to be democratic countries. And the rule of law is one of the biggest value of EU. And so if you don't respect the rule of law, can you still be considered an EU member state? All right. I hope this is a clear question for our candidates. I would like to ask Jean-Sylvie to start.
So yeah, the rule of law is very important in the EU, and I think we should not be very quick or very easy on saying if you if you do not respect one part of one condition of the EU that you should be or get out of the EU. We've seen with the Great Britain how difficult that is. That's not something that we should go very light on. But indeed, the rule of law has to be respected, and every party needs to remain a democratic party or country, because that's one of the conditions why they entered into the EU. So I think that we should make sure that every country or every member state that has committed to this rule of law should respect it, and that it should be enforced in some other way by the EU with maybe sanctions, but I don't think it's a good idea to directly remove a member state from the EU.
Thank you. Dear candidate, we don't have much time and we want everything to go. So please, I know you have a lot to say, and I know it's a big question, and obviously we won't be solving everything today, but I think we need you guys to mind the timing, okay? Thank you.
No, just, yeah, it was good just to try to be concise as, if possible.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Stephanie?
So I think around 60% of all national legislations are one way or another stemming from the EU. So think of climate, environment, mobility, economy. So even in Belgium, for example, a lot of legislation is inspired by the EU, but the EU gives guidelines or frames, and then the country makes its actual law. Now some people claim, EU forces us to do this and that, so that's not really true. EU gives possibilities. What I can say is that we can see that in the European Union, some countries are changing, and in my opinion, and in the socialist opinion, changing in a bad way. The human rights in some countries, or let's say equality rights of the values we saw in the beginning, are threatened, and are against, and in those countries that threaten these equality rules, that is against the European values. So I think, or the socialists think, that we should ask ourselves really the questions, what to do and how the EU should sanction or should handle the countries that are going against the European values. So I think it's a really important question, and I think that our common values is what should keep the European Union together. And the European Union should play a part in those levels.
Thank you.
1 minute?
Yeah,
Well
perfect.
done.
Well done.
See, it is a very good exercise.
It's a good exercise.
Okay. Now, Vincent?
I'll try to say it in as few words as possible. Rule of law is fundamental to me. I believe if a country is actually not following the rule of law, we should be able to punish them, yes. To me, this could look like, for instance, that you take away their vote on certain topics. Should we throw them out of Europe? I kind of disagree on that, at least from the first phase, because of course, the idea of being part of the European was also grown after the Iron Curtain fell. And I think it's still important to be in debate with every country that we still have, because if you just kick them out, the thing is they'll not stay democracy, of course. So we have leverage to also help them, to help the people in those countries to stay democracy. So I believe we shouldn't punish the citizens of those countries. So in the beginning, yes, you should punish them. If it really goes far, you could throw them out, but honestly, I really don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Now,
Marianne?
Yes, so as my colleagues, I obviously agree that we should punish countries that do not adhere to rule of law, either by taking away financial measures or just, exactly as Vincent said, taking away their voting rights on certain things. But yeah, kicking them out of the EU, not a great idea, just because the EU, the bigger it is, the safer we all are. If you look at, for example, the Balkans, 3 countries are investing millions and billions of euros in miscommunication there against European citizens. And those 3 are our big best friend, the US, of course, China, and Russia. The moment we kick out a country of the EU, we basically say, hey, country that is literally geographically right next to us, go find a new friend outside of us. And that new friend will probably be Russia or China. So from a defense perspective, it's not great to kick them out, but they can't be in the EU and also just not adhering to rule of law. We have to do something against that.
thank you so much. Also well timed. Now, Ralph?
Yes, who is against the rule of law? Certainly we are not, but we are against weaponizing the principle of the rule of law against countries with a conservative government that has been democratically elected, and often by, if you look at Poland and before Tusk came back to power, who's not respecting the rule of law either by your standards. But the rule of law is being weaponized to attack countries like Hungary, Poland, Italy, and that is not it's not because a country is not following a progressive and left-wing agenda that it's a bad partner in the EU. So the rule of law, yes, but don't weaponize it against countries with a different agenda.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Henrik, lastly.
Thank you. You can of course not have two differences. I mean, it's quintessence to join the EU to respect the Copenhagen criteria. So it's one cornerstone. So if you want to adhere to the EU, you have to respect the rule of law and implement it. So basically, you need to be, if you want to be part of the club, you need to respect it. That's why we also are in favor of the Article 7 procedure, but of course, we need to do everything possible to keep these countries united. Is the best to stand, and that's why we go for dialogue as much as possible. Of course, there's also the conditioning between the budget and the abuse of funds, and this is a good advancement, and it helps. For example, in Hungary, you see what happened there. There's some change was made because we can now condition the budget and get away with the abuse of EU funds.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna give Vincent like 10 seconds.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. So I heard Ralph saying that the rule of law is a left-wing agenda. So actually, I'm very curious about the question to him. Whether independent judges, a judge that is independent, having that, whether that's left-wing propaganda to you, because you said that it is, and I'm very curious on your opinion to that.
I never said that the rule of law is left-wing. I said the rule of law is being weaponized against countries with a conservative government or conservative agenda. It's completely different from what you said.
The fundamental fact, of course, is the rule of law. The existence of the rule of law to you is a problem, of course, because it's weaponized, but you say it's weaponized, but it's simply said the rules are clear and you should follow them. Is that weaponization? It's just following the laws.
Well, in Belgium we have politically nominated judges as well. Is that a problem to you?
Yes, actually, I think that we should abolish that. To be very honest, I think we should abolish that. But at least there we still have.
Do you want to sanction Belgium for that?
At least we have half in Belgium, so I think I prefer that. Yes.
Thank you. Woohoo.
What a
See,
nice
the rule
exchange.
of law, eh? This is it's getting heated, eh? As this is getting heated, we're gonna go into a topic that's gonna get even more heated, eh? So let's take all the breather. We are all happy. The sun is here, okay? So, migration. Let us now take a closer look at the infamous Migration Pact and Asylum, which is a set of new rules managing migration and establishing a common asylum system composed of 5 components. Before we start, let me remind you all that a refugee is defined as someone who, owing to well-founded fears of being persecuted for reason of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion, is outside of their country of nationality due to that fear and is unable or unwilling to return to it, and thus seeking refuge and protection into another country. As that is now set, I should give
the first question, and this time around we're going to ask this question to 3 of the candidates present here. First, we're going to ask Rolf to respond, as well as Ariane and Henrik. And the question is, when the war in Ukraine broke, the dignified and unified response from EU member states was overwhelming and great. And the displaced Ukrainian refugees were able to benefit from the activation of the Temporary Protection Directive, something that's truly unprecedented. With this new agreement, what do you say to citizens that feel like the EU is applying double standards when it comes to its migration and asylum policy, when the people seeking protection are not white? And Ralph?
I think currently many people, not even white people, receive protection in the EU, but the question is interesting because it points right at the heart of what the essence of a migration policy could be or should be. And for us, the basis of a migration policy should be, an asylum policy should be reception in the own region. There are other safe countries before reaching Europe. There's no reason to reach Europe if you have safe countries in between. And we could, of course, help from Europe, from our member states, from the EU. We could help those countries. We could conditionalize development aid to link it to migration, to the local reception of asylum seekers. But we don't have to import the whole world within the EU.
Okay, thank you. And Ariane, would you like to?
So yeah, answer to the question, yes, it's discriminatory, it's racist. This is not something really special. We have special protection for countries because they're our own. I heard that argument said so many times about Ukraine, but not about any other country. The reason is, for us Greens, migration is not a problem to be solved or something that can even be stopped. People have moved around for centuries, forever, and they will keep on moving around. What we should concentrate on is to make sure that, first of all, when people decide to flee from persecution, for etc., that they could be received here on a normal way, that they don't have to wait for years and years and years on end without getting any type of clear answer. So that's one, clearer, shorter procedures. Two, we make sure that there are enough legal pathways so that the Mediterranean stops being one of the deadliest borders, where 27,000 people have drowned since 2014. So we make sure that there are legal pathways, and they are necessary. VOCA, the big Flemish business association, themselves wrote an article last year basically begging for legal labor migration in different sectors, because they're going to say, oh, we just need highly educated people. No, we need nurses. We need people who actually.
Well, but actually the time has passed.
Time
so
is up.
maybe
We need people who want to build stuff. So yeah, legal pathways, shorter procedures, and just try to treat people in a human and dignified way, because they've been through so much by the time they got here. And fun fact, most migrants are actually in their own region. We get a tiny fraction here in Europe.
Yes, thank you so much. And Hendrik, would you like to respond?
Yes, although I like Ariane's passion and so on, I fundamentally disagree on the point that that's a discrimination, because of course discrimination is a legal concept, as you all know, so you cannot treat two situations that are equal differently. And in this case, it's a total different situation. I mean, Ukraine is an accession candidate country in the European continent, which is our responsibility, our first responsibility. Second, so you cannot compare it with countries all over the world. If we would give them all these people temporary protection, is just impossible. Why? Because there's another concept in the EU, which is the absorption capacity of the EU. And it's also in the accession of new countries. You always have to see whether we can absorb, are we ready to do it, because of course, if it is not the case, it can disintegrate communities and have tensions, and this is absolutely need to be avoided. For Ukraine, we could do it. It is a European country, it's a candidate country, they have all the rights, but we cannot do this for all over the world. There we have the Geneva Convention.
Okay.
Just one question. 10 seconds.
Allow, granted.
Yes.
If there were problems in Turkey, would it be the same? It's also an accession country since 2005. They've been trying to join the European Union. The Ottomans, you like history, I know the NVL likes history, was also part of like this whole grand European story. So Turks, yes, also?
That's also a political question. For us, it's very clear. We would like to reform the relationship with Turkey. So for us, we need to be honest and clear and say to the Turkish people, the Turkish government, after all these years, we need to stop the accession process and go to a reformed cooperation, which is a partnership on migration, on climate, on defense, in NATO cooperation, and so on. Second, if there is a decision to be taken, it will be a democratic decision at the EU level.
Thank you. And now, so is there a response?
A small response to.
You've responded before. We would like to move forward. Okay? Trying to balance the speaking time.
Unless you can limit it to one sentence.
Yes, certainly. You mentioned VOCA and the call for labor migration. We don't need labor migration. 44 to 50% of non-EU migrants in Belgium are unemployed and are not actively seeking employment.
That were three sentences. That was three sentences. But so the other candidates don't feel left out. We have a question for you too, a different one this time. Many civil society organizations have called upon the lack of value of human life and dignity that the Migration Pact and condemning the Migration Pact and those new agreed on procedures. What do you say? What do you have to say when they say that the Parliament has caved? Stephanie, yeah, you can. Oh no, sorry. Yes, Jean-Sylvie.
I think that we have to regulate, and when we talk about the migration pact, it's about the irregular migration, and we're not talking about the people that come in a regular or legal way. You have to make some point you have to see where is the problem, and we had a problem here in Brussels. You could see at the Gare du Nord or in other stations where people were sleeping outside, and Belgium has been pointed the fingers to say you have to do something for those people, but it's because we lack space, we lack shelters for all those people, and at some point you have to say we have to regulate. We have to regulate the migration through, we have to regulate how the number of people that come inside of our country. And as we live in this European Union where we have other member states that could possibly relieve us and take some of those persons, I think that that should be done. And that's what the Migration Pact is for. We want short procedures so that people know what they can expect, if they can stay or not, and that the human rights are being respected.
Thank you. Vincent, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I actually agree on most of what has been said. So the Immigration Pact was something that we worked on for like 8 years, and I think it's the first time that at European level we were able to get all the member states together to find a policy to actually also take some control, but also in the end, which we'll also do, is to make migration something that we can look at a positive way. Because of course there's a lot of fear in Flanders that migration would be uncontrolled. And I think that we need to stop this fear. And I think for this, a migration pact is a good thing. And I fully agree that currently we see in Europe that some countries are not taking any immigrants at all, while others are doing a lot of effort. And I think this is one of the best things that has been put into the pact, is the fact that there will be a flexible way of helping each other. And it's the first time that we're actually going to say that if you're not helping, you should do something else. So the migration pact it's not ideal, but it's the first good step. And indeed, if you're coming from a country that you have no chance at all, because you're not prosecuted or anything else, you might indeed not enter Europe. But that's also a call we should make, because in the end, we cannot help everybody.
Thank you, Vincent.
And Stephanie, now?
Yes. So it has already been said by my colleagues here that here in Brussels we see the problem. You study here, maybe you live here, people that are sleeping outside in the metro, etc. That we had to do something. So we're glad that the Migration Pact is there. Is it perfect? No, but it's a very good basis to regulate everything. It's important to do something, to act, because the Migration Pact now gives us the possibility to act on 2 levels. So like at the national level, the countries can do a faster processing, like Ariane said, it's important that it's fast so people are not in insecurity for a prolonged time. It should be more efficient and clear. Can you stay? Okay, then these are the rules. Can you not stay? Then it's also clear. That's positive for the migrants and for the authorities. of course, I'm socialist, so our main word is always solidarity. And on the EU level, there is a big solidarity principle in this migration pact, in the sense that it's the whole pressure of migration is not only on the border countries that receive all the influx of the migration. Now there's a principle of solidarity, so the migration should be dispatched all through the European countries.
Thank you very much. This is the last question I will ask, and then after it will be your turn. So, we can all agree and condemn strongly what happened the 7th of October 2023 towards the Jew community in Israel. But how many Palestinians' lives would it take for Europeans and allies to uphold the value this union is built on, even beyond our continent, and to finally stop sending weapons to Israel and or apply some sanction for non-compliance with international law? I'm opening this for all the candidates to respond. Please, it's a very clear, direct question.
Ariane?
No, obviously there is some hypocrisy there when it comes to condemning the acts of the state of Israel against the Palestinian people. And we within the Belgian government have been fighting so hard on a European level, but also creating a coalition. For example, Premier De Croo also supported Pedro Sanchez in his effort to recognize Palestine on UN level. The Belgian government is also trying to get some sanctions also happening, stop importing goods from occupied places. It's not enough. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it's not enough. We should be doing way more. But Belgium is one of the EU countries that is fighting really hard for this on a European level and internationally.
Thank you. Vincent?
Yes, we should. I have to put it on green because actually it's thinking, so that's
Because it's almost time.
no, it's not working anymore. Maybe I can. I can also yell, but it's not. Yes, we should punish Israel for what they're doing now. And yes, what happened in Israel was devastating, but the reaction they're giving now is just not defendable at all. Yes, Palestine should indeed be acknowledged as a state. Yes, there should be two states. And yes, I believe, and indeed, as said, but also Peter Lassutte from the Green Party doing a very good role. We should, but my part is concerned, have on European level sanctions. And I'm really happy that Alejandro De Croo, together with the federal government, is really going there. Because we cannot allow innocent victims in Gaza being killed by the Israeli government.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph?
Vlaams Belang is also for a two-state solution for Israel, a negotiated two-state solution. This time it seems far away, of course, and we will be among the first to condemn the atrocities that are happening there. But at the same time, we are not in a position as Belgium to solve the issue there and to create a two-state solution. It has to be negotiated at a higher level. And at this moment, this seems to be blocked, especially as the bigger powers that be, such as the United States, have a somewhat mitigated position for the moment. Basically, we will not be against sanctions against Israel, but we have to weigh, we have to balance the consequences of such sanctions with the effect. We have seen that the sanctions against Russia have totally missed their goals. And the goal was to paralyze the Russian economy. Last year, the Russian economy has grown with 3.6% and the EU economy with 1.6%.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, it's tremendously sad what happened on 7th October, and brutally all the victims, we saw the images as we saw it in the European Parliament. And second, if you see now in Gaza, the children starving, nobody can grab pictures, so that's why it's not black and white, or one side or other side. It's what needs to be done now is to have the ceasefire, and hopefully the peace talks will come to a result. It will be faced, and in that sense, hopefully the next step could be a restoration plan for Gaza, and to come to a two-state solution, which involves also the immediate release of all the hostages. You cannot imagine we had in only in 2016 the entire country was in shock after some bombings and deaths of 10, 20 people, I think, and it was a shock. Can you imagine after 7 October what happened in Israel, and now what happens in Gaza? It's the entire population of Gaza and in shock, the Israel people are in shock. So as an international community, we have the duty to bring everybody around the table, do everything that we get. And in that way, I don't know if now urging for sanctions is the ideal situation. We should push and give peace a chance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Stephanie?
It goes without saying that every death is a death too much, and what we see that is happening there is very heartbreaking. And as well on the European level as on like national level, I think Belgium is doing trying to do a lot. I can speak for the Socialist. If I speak for the Socialist Party, and so we have Minister Caroline Genet, and I can say that she's doing everything that she can, and like we're literally trying to help. And then we have to say that it is not okay that Israel is trying to block like every aid coming in to help people and to save people like for surviving. And we're literally trying to drop like food, necessities, medicine from the sky, literally because there are no other solutions to help. So for me, of course, sanctions, negotiations and stuff, everything is very necessary. And right now, the socialists at least are trying to do everything that is possible to help in the first necessities.
Thank you. Thank you so much.